Take me from being a lawyer to finding a problem or inefficiency there, to go into claim kit, to this, that. So just start us there with your journey, kind of.
Yeah, so I was a litigation attorney. Loved being a lawyer for parts of it, right? Because it was fun researching. I like words, as you'll pick up from our company. Did not like other attorneys, right? So decided I wanted to leave the practice of law, partly because of that. But there was an important learning from when I was a lawyer. I was reviewing documents on a lot of litigation, and then I started noticing that our clients were sending that document review overseas. And then I noticed that those clients were starting to send that document review to machines called technology assisted review, which is machine learning for litigation. And so I just always remember thinking to myself, man, I'd love to do that somewhere. That's really cool. And it was really early for that space back in the late 2000s.
Yeah, very early.
Yeah. And so then when I decided to stop practicing law, we created a document management company for claims. Just basically going and getting tons and tons of documents from construction claims, making them available to people in our software. And then from that, people reviewing using the software, and then they came to us and said, hey, could we use the software to review insurance policies? And so that was kind of, I call that the rabbit hole that is RIS Genius that we'll probably never get out of, because there's so many layers to the complexity of insurance policies that we're trying to break down with data science and software that we could work on this forever. And so that is what really became RIS Genius. And so we like to say our mission is to deliver the right policy impossibly fast. Right? And actually, my mind's been shifting a little bit, because people don't even care about the fast as much as they care about the right. Right? Like, if you know you're going to get it right every time, you're willing to put up with a little bit of delay in whatever thing you're doing. So there's the right part and the fast part, but those, because we're using machines to do those, they just simultaneously both improve along the way. So the problem we're trying to solve basically is helping, on the broker side, helping brokers figure out what's in their policies for policy checking, and this is the use case I'm most excited about, marketing. Right? When you go out to the market and you're like, hey, show me your policy, I'll tell you if it's good or bad. There's no good way to do that right now. It's really, really hard, because who knows what's in that policy. You have to sit down literally and read it and write it. I say that's a funny thing to say, right? Literally you have to read it. Of course, that's how we've always done things, but we're on the cusp of artificial intelligence making things like that not necessary. Like, you not having to read the whole thing, because it's going to tell you what's in that thing, and then you make the subjective decision, is this good or bad?
Right. Because you can read it, but understanding it is a totally different thing too. And contract language is very difficult.
It is, yeah.
And so having the data or the machine learning being able to read it, then tell you what that means exactly too, is important.
Yeah, and then the thing that always surprises me, a lot of times surprises me when we talk to prospects or customers, mostly prospects. We'll show them the software, which understands language and shows you where it is and what it is. And I'd say about 50% of the time people say, okay, but it needs to tell me if this is good or bad.
Right.
And in my head, I'm always thinking, what are you going to do exactly, right? And so I think so a lot of brokers then talk about how they're going to have to move to more services, and that's why. Because the writing's on the wall that machines are going to be able to understand these policies better than humans.
Right. And one of the challenges, and we've talked about this, is as broker advising our clients, no policy is the same, no form is the same. Their deliverables are different. So the challenge has always been for us as brokers to take the appropriate information out of one policy, get it from the other one, and find a good way to compare it. You know how we have to do that? Create a spreadsheet. Yeah. And then we're trying to pull that information out of there. And so when you're able to take, multiple policies or quotes and know that they're all different, and then pull out the relevant information and make it easy to compare, and really be able to make an educated decision based on data, not my experiences or what I think I know, because we're not attorneys and we don't know contract law. We have a good idea. The things that we're looking for, especially me as a broker, are some of the things that are pretty simple, especially when you get in like professional liability and some of those kind of contracts where it's like first dollar defense and like hammer clauses and things like that, but really getting into the weeds more and being able to buy it. So I think it's fascinating. One thing that I think is interesting is, so you go from attorney, claim kit, then go, I'm gonna start a software company. Like, how did you have that skill set to be able to do that, right? And it was still early, so it wasn't like everybody was ready to pour money into insurance technology. Talk a little bit about that.
I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
In hindsight, I just was totally unprepared. And, I would argue that the software we built for ClaimKit was not a good idea, right? That was our claim document thing, because it was just document management. Document management's a commodity, right? SharePoint or Dropbox or whatever,
Relativity.
right? Well,
Wow.
Relativity is really smart because
Right.
they crushed the legal market,
Right.
right? And they've done it by incorporating AI. They actually bought the AI company that they were using, right? And so that to me is what document management is becoming as if you fight in the document management space, you are competing on price because everything does the same thing and it requires lots of system integrators to kind of create. But if you have a vertical you've picked for document management and AI that you focus very, very intently on that document management space, you will win if you hit it really, really hard. And so that's kind of the thesis of our company is, we've had opportunities to do tech companies out in Silicon Valley and helping them with their contracts, or construction firms here in Kansas City and helping them with their contracts, right? And for a while, I was taking a look. I'll always remember my birthday on January 18th, 2017, because I was going through, or 2018, because I was going through a construction contract and trying to apply our software to it. And it was a fool's errand, because you need a whole new training set of data to do construction contracts.
Because construction contracts not anywhere near like that.
They're written totally different, right? And so...
But I love this idea, by the way.
Yeah. No, I do too. Literally we were talking to somebody about it yesterday. But there's no point, because we now are very deep on insurance policy language. We're actually getting ready to release our Taxonomy 2.0, which is the way that we interpret insurance policies. And it's so good that I think people are going to use it to train people on how to read insurance policies. Mm-hmm. It just intuitively makes sense. You can literally look at a clause heading that we assign to a clause now and know exactly what's in that clause without even reading the clause. You can imagine where we're going with that, right? Because then you start predicting is this good or bad. So I don't even know why I got off on that tangent, but
because I said relativity.
Yeah. So they stayed very vertical. They
Right.
stayed legal, right? We are going to stay insurance, very, very vertical. And frankly, we're going to stay P&C vertical.
Right.
Because, last year we evaluated life insurance because we had a huge disability provider come to us and say, hey, we do policy checks and we think it's the same thing that you do. Can you help us? And so their workflow is the same, right? Their workflow fits our software.
Right.
What didn't fit our what didn't fit our software was having to go learn those documents, which means I have a human that learns to read disability documents, break them down, parse them, understand the language, and then we feed that data to a machine.
Is that how it starts with machine learning?
Oh gosh, yeah.
So it takes a human to read it and discern whether good, bad, different, create this set of rules, then throw it in the machine and let the machine.
You don't create rules though. You're just basically feeding it data and a label.
Gotcha.
Is the way I think about it. And so I still remember the nights I would be up till 2 to 4 a.m. doing that.
Just so you know, there's people in insurance agencies staying up till 2 or 4 in the morning reading policies too.
Well, and it's why we,
Right.
that's actually what you just hit on is why I decided to go after RIS Genius. And
You were onto something. You're like, if I'm doing this to do this, imagine what other people are doing or not doing.
Yeah, and because even before we started building it here as a team, we would go to brokers. I remember one in Virginia, but it's always kind of like senior people at the organization, like senior account managers that know the language very quickly. But even they were saying, I was like, when do you do this? And they're like, nights and weekends. Mm-hmm. Because it's important enough to do, but you don't have time to do it. And that was kind of the tip off that this is worth it.
Right.
So then let's circle back to my legal experience. Remember, I did it, then outsourcing, then technology.
Right.
Guess what happened in the insurance industry? And I didn't realize this until later. People did it here, whether it's policy review, searching for a form, whatever. Then they created centers of excellence, which are just BPOs outsourcing to India, China, wherever. And now the machines are coming. The machines are coming, absolutely.
So circle back to challenges when you said you were going to create a software company and not knowing how do I do this, right? And then being able to go down that path to...
Yeah, so I often compare like writing software to writing a book, right? Like imagine starting out to write a book and you just vaguely know the topic. You haven't even outlined it or anything. And imagine, this is the part that I really struggled with. And then imagine saying, okay, how long is that book going to take you to write? And you're like, what? I don't even know what each chapter's about. I don't even know how many chapters are going to be. I don't even know if it's going to be a kid's book or a novel, right? Or an encyclopedia. Who knows? And so one of the things I've had to learn is that just add like saying, okay, we want to build policy checking. When's that going to be done? That not the way to succeed. You're going to fail every time with those estimates because you have no idea what needs to go into that software at that time. And so we had a senior product manager last year. Her name's Jennifer Curtis, and a director of technology, Patrick Gallagher, who have been instrumental in really starting to put structure around things and pushing back when the founder gets a little bit excited and tries to push for deadlines, because that just never leads to good things.
This guy.
Yeah.
As you get ready to get on a board call, right? It's like, how are we doing on this?
Yeah, I just refer to myself in third person, so I think this interview is over.
Tell me this. So this is something I think it's interesting to me, right? So you're a piece of the puzzle, right? To this new, what I would consider maybe ethos or ecosystem of brokers, right? So I always, I'm trying to think of ways that technology is going to help us, right? So if you think of policy checking and how it was done in the past, you're really reliant on like, well, is that person really good at the policy checking? Or is this broker really no risk as it is for railroad or construction or whatever? And where I've always said is you could go out and try to find people that you think know those industries, or you can rely on data analytics, artificial intelligence that knows those industries. And I guess my view is what is coming is that the agencies that adopt these technologies, they become more efficient, but they become more accurate, and they become better experts in a lot of different verticals. And I think that's our role moving forward, is being able to offer those services. I also think it changes the dynamics from revenues and things like that. So I guess just my question to you, that was me just kind of pontificating on what I think is going, is where do you think technology continues to go? What's the role of the broker 10 years from now? And how does that relationship work or last or survive?
I think the power is going to be with the brokers in the future. And what I mean by that is the data available to a broker is much larger than the data available to a carrier. So you receive policies from every carrier that you work with, right? Lots of different carriers. And you can go get quotes from other carriers as well. Whereas a carrier only has the information that they're creating. Does that make sense?
Right. Unless they're shared the information from a broker.
But even then, that does happen, but it's intermittent, right? They don't have as much information. Even with that, they don't have
pick and choose. It's a very small data set.
Yep.
You can't formulate any sort of opinion or data from it.
And then something happened where the carriers don't invest a ton of money in technology, right? It's hard to get into their portals and get access to stuff and submit applications, right?
It's clunky, it's terrible.
Yeah, and they do that because they've shifted the costs essentially to the brokers to do that work. Right? Like basically, if you want to submit an application, it's on you to figure out how to fill that out. They don't make it easy for you necessarily. Now, there's some carriers out there that are starting to do that. But by shifting that burden, the brokers have had to figure out ways to get faster. And right now, they're really trying to figure out, how do I get faster at doing these different tasks?
And better.
And
more accurate.
Well, it's all, yeah, that's exactly right. And the result of that is going to be structured data, right? Because that's the only way, and then you got to then look at what is the secondary benefit of this. You're going to get faster and more consistent, but then you're going to have a data trove, and I'm talking brokers in general, and then you can just optimize insurance however you want, right? If you're a specialist in cyber insurance, you can then say, okay, this is the future state, obviously, but all right, cyber insurance, I have a tech vendor in Silicon Valley doing this X in revenue. What should I have in my policy, and where should I go, and what person should I contact, and what date and time are best to contact them? All that's going to get optimized. Or even better, you're going to say, okay, you push a button and it formulates the perfect policy and sends it to 10 carriers and says, all right, you guys bid on this.
That's what I envision is I walk into my office and there's one button and I just go like this.
But to be honest with you, when that happens, then you got to ask, is there a role for brokers at that point? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right? Because you go think about trading, like stock trading, right? Like the people that are, what's it called? The
E-trading or
where they're where the machines are doing the trading, right?
Bot trading. Or
whatever, like what happens when you can just push a button, send this out, receive it back? That's where you have to start questioning.
So that's interesting because what I believe is that will continue to change, and so then what has to change is how do we get paid? Yeah. And so most brokerages right now are producer heavy, commission heavy driven. Based on a percentage of premium, which is, in my opinion, direct conflict of interest, is that I get paid more as your premium goes up, but I get it. And there's lots of layers of service and support and people, and they take, here's the commission earned here, here's the people that we have to use. So if you start to eliminate the need for some of that, you still have to understand how are we getting business, right? But you start to think about the revenue streams a little bit differently. You're able to be a little bit more nimble as the technology comes on, and like the broker, like we could still be relevant for a while until that easy button comes, and then we'll see what ends up evolving or happening there. But one of the things that you were talking about is just like I've always thought that. So we talk about the structured data. Will we ever have structured data on rates? And what I mean is that if I say you're this business with this many employees in this city, I know what the average GL rate is based on loss runs or percentages. And so what I believe has always been missing from the client's end is like, well, am I getting a good deal? Like, I mean, is this what I'm supposed to be paying? And if you could say as a comparator to other businesses like you with similar loss runs, this is on average what they're paying in our area. That makes clients feel better. Like it's just saying, hey, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. And the rates have always kind of been, it's just kind of the unknown for people. I mean, other than posted rates with like work comp and things like that, but it's just, the rating I think becomes interesting over time. And if you think of all the agency management systems out there and the data that's inside those, you think of Vertifores and these other groups, like, I mean, they could be taking that data and using it and creating that structured data and then allowing us, like, and all those rates that are sitting in that system, it's like with class codes and SIC codes and all of this, it's like, gosh, I mean, they're definitely there.
I can guarantee you they're working on that. It's a matter of how are they allowed to share that data? Right. And then for the smaller brokers asking the question, okay, if I'm not going to have enough data by myself, how do I get enough access to enough data? Right? Those are kind of the questions that will get worked out.
So here's a couple more. The barriers to entry in our industry, right? So if I think back to when e-discovery was popular in law firms, there was paper discovery, right? And there was scanning and there was PDFs. And then came the platforms, the software platforms. Obviously on the coast, they were adopting it quicker. What are you doing to make it easier to get in with an agency and have them be able to use and understand it? Like, will you see that with the people you're dealing with or trying to get to implement it? The account manager that's been at XYZ brokerage forever, that's used to PDFs and used to some of these things. It's like, how does your platform like, oh, this was easy. It's like, I just uploaded the files and it put it down there. And it's like,
this is going to be the wrong answer probably than what you're looking for. But
so
I always go back to, like, I don't force sales upon the brokers, right? I don't, and if somebody really wants it, like, that's who we start working with. Right. And so, there's always the adoption curve, the bell curve, like the early adopters and middle adopters and late adopters. And with the technology at its current state, it's really important that we focus on the early adopters right now, because there's going to be kinks. There's going to be things like AI is not 100% accurate. So I need people that understand that too, right?
And that don't know if it comes up. No,
that's how I tell everyone that. Yeah.
Right.
And so I don't know if we make it easy yet. Right? The system's not ready to make it easy, or people's minds aren't ready to make it easy yet. There's one guy I always remember who it was a broker and he really wanted to see the software, so I went over to his office to meet with him and was demoing it. And he's like, "How did you get that up there?" Right? He's pointing at the screen where I'm demoing. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "That document that's up there. How do you get that up there?" He picks up a piece of paper, and I was like, oh no. Because he was talking about like scanning a document in and turning it into an image and then having that image on your computer. He did not understand that process.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, this is not a good target account.
Right.
So there's going to be just stages of this stuff getting adopted. I always go back to this Google quote from one of the Google execs, and they're like, why did you not advertise early on? He's like, because I didn't need to. I knew, well, no, he didn't say I didn't need to. He said, I didn't want to advertise because I knew that if someone just came on 100 days later or 1,000 days later, it was just going to be even better. Right. And so he's like, we just were playing the game.
Right. People like, for me, it's like some of the technology I've adopted, I know there's going to be some kinks, but I want to get in early because I'm excited about it. And I know that this is going in the right direction. So just like you're saying, it's like, so the people that are excited about it are going to work with you through those kinks. They're going to be great sources of information and like suggestions as they're working through it. And then when you do get out there and that older person's ready to jump in, it becomes better. So RIS Genius in general, like just kind of if you were to try and the layperson, the brokers, the agents out there, like what is it and how does it improve our lives?
I mean, RIS Genius at its core is structuring text and insurance policies, which sounds boring and not very helpful. But then you realize we serve that text up to you exactly when you need it. So you're looking for limits, you click and find those and compare them to limits in another policy. You need to look at an endorsement. We will find that endorsement. You need to know if an endorsement's missing from another policy. We can tell you that. So creating that structured text in a big giant PDF is the key to unlocking these things, both from understanding what's in them at that moment when you're doing a review, but also as a secondary benefit when you're trying to compile all that data and understand it when you're doing an evaluation of your entire book, right? So structuring text within insurance policies is what we do.
Love it.